This week, I got to talk with Cate Holahan about her new thriller, The Kidnapping of Alice Ingold. If you like thrillers and missing persons cases that also talk about some social issues along the way, you're gonna love this one. Alice Ingold has been kidnapped. Call the police, alert the media. You can't play this game without all the pieces. Beautiful, blonde, and immensely privileged, Alice Ingold is the perfect victim for a true crime-obsessed culture, and for a masked duo with a singular purpose. Instead of a demand for ransom, her captors have a riddle, and they're inviting the entire country to solve it. No one is more invested in the search than Alice's parents. Catherine, a socialite with obscene generational wealth, and Brian, a visionary AI tech guru. But while Brian turns to machines to solve the problem, Catherine tries to crowdsource the solution, stopping at nothing to bring her daughter home. And America isn't just watching the story unfold, it's playing along. The nationwide scavenger hunt for Alice is on. As an increasingly desperate Catherine strives to understand each new clue, a complex picture of the crime develops. Soon, everyone will see the kidnapping of Alice Ingold for what it was, and Alice won't be the only one who will need saving. This one talks about so many things, is also impeccable with its pacing, and I had a lot of fun talking with her about what inspired the book and her process in writing this one. So I can't wait for you to hear our conversation. So I'm super excited to talk with Cate Holahan about, I keep saying the kidnapping of Catherine Ingold. It's the kidnapping of Alice Ingold, so that's why I was looking at the book to make sure I didn't mix up the names. And yeah, I'm excited to have you back. I think we talked about Young Rich Widows would that be a couple of years ago now? Like 2 years, probably?
It was the first in the series that we spoke about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, a couple. We're on book 3 of that.
I know. I'm so excited for that one. That'll be so fun. But it was kind of crazy. I interviewed Vanessa Lilly earlier this week, and I'm like, I'm just talking to all the Young Rich Widows authors.
We're back.
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't get to ask you because it was a group interview previously. I always want to know, like, what was your journey to becoming an author? Did you always know you wanted to write? What was that like for you?
Oh yeah. Well, I got my first book rejection at age 7. I sent in a book to Scholastic, and my mom indulged me and sent it in, and with original artwork and everything. It was illustrated, and it was rejected with a very nice rejection letter that told me to keep trying. They did not send back my original book with its original artwork, so lesson learned there. And I really just wanted to be an author ever since. However, I also wanted to eat, and in the beginning, it can be a little difficult. So I became a journalist, and I was a journalist for I guess I wrote for newspapers. I started off with obituaries when I was 13, writing for the local newspaper, and by the time I was 17, I had made it to like the front page of the at the time it was called the Bergen Record. Now it's just the Record newspaper.
That is so cool.
And so then after that, I wrote for the Boston Globe briefly. I wrote for Business Week magazine and online, MSN Money, and then I was a television producer at CNBC. I did that when I had my first kid, and I was like, "Whoa, kids are expensive. Let's go to television."
Yes.
And so, and then by the time I had my second one, I was just like, let's. I've always wanted to write. Writing books has really been my passion, so I'm going to write one over maternity leave. Right. And so I did. And I got an agent and a publisher, and I decided, okay, let's not go back. Let's do this for real. That became it. And now, if you count Young Rich Widows, the group series that I write, it's book, this is book 10, and I just filed book 11.
Wow. That is impressive. I just love that you made it to the front page of your newspaper when you were 13. I can't get over that. This is so cool.
Oh, not the front page. 13 was obituaries.
Oh, sorry.
17.
Okay, yeah.
So it took a while.
Still, you were still in school even. That's really cool. you've written a lot, obviously a lot of books and a lot of thrillers. Is there something about thrillers that kind of draws you to it, or is it kind of just like those are the ideas that come to you?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, it's the stakes. I mean, the stakes in thrillers are literally life and death. So that that makes it easy in some ways, because it's not like you have to convince people what the stakes are.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is I love the puzzle of it, of kind of the developing the twists and turns. And the last thing is I really write from a place of anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
So I spend most of my time, thinking of things that worry me, and then kind of playing that out in my head. And so occasionally some of them make good book ideas.
Yes.
And other ones just give me a reason to, take some Wellbutrin. But
right. Wellbutrin has the opposite effect for me, but I love that it works for you.
Oh, really?
Oh, I love that. You're like, I figured out how to monetize my overthinking brain.
Yes, that's right. If you can't beat it, join it.
Yeah. So I guess then from that point, how do you start? Do you plot it out before you start writing? Do you typically know where you're headed? How does your writing process happen once you have the idea?
Yes. So as an overthinker, I absolutely plot out.
Yeah.
So I have these Excel spreadsheets, and my father was an accountant, and so he tried to teach me Excel for accounting, and that never stuck. But I was like, oh, I can write words in it, and I can move around the cells. So when I just switch a chapter, that chapter can. So that's So I use that, and I plot the hell out of it, and then I have like other color-coded sheets for different story arcs and where they're going to intersect and where the twist is and all that. And then, as you're writing, your characters develop sometimes in ways that are sort of unexpected. And then I go back to the plotting sheet and I go, okay, well, this isn't going to work anymore. And I replot, and then I go back. So there is a back and forth, but I'm very afraid of the blank page. So I always start with an idea of like, I'm trying to go from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I'll keep that chapter. Every now and then I have a day where I'm like, that's, we're going to throw out that day. But at least I'm never kind of there going, what's the plan? Like, God speak to me, it's always, this is what I'm doing today.
That makes sense. I feel like that's what, in terms of like I edit a lot of videos and content and stuff for my job. And I understand that feeling of like, if I can just get the framework in, like, especially on like a big project, then it's like, okay, every time I sit down, I just have to like fill in the like in between parts almost. So that makes sense. With characters, is it, you said sometimes like you're writing and then the characters reveal something to you. So do you do much planning with the character ahead of time, or do you kind of get to know them as you're writing too?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, I always sit down thinking I certainly know their major want.
Yeah.
Right. And I know their major flaw usually. And those are the things that I start down and write. But as I'm writing, vulnerabilities come out probably because you're filtering a lot of stuff through that character. And then I'll realize, just to use one from the Kidnapping of Alice Ingold, as I was writing the character of Alice, I was kind of like, when, growing up the way she did, what would her relationship with the media have been, right? And how that might have influenced some of her actions. And so I wanted this idea that she has kind of been this Nepo baby and not liked, what people have said about her, and that's kind of put some pressure to feel like she's more than that, and she stands for more than that. And so in the beginning, when she's kidnapped and she spends a lot of time talking about how she fought and how she did this, the reason I think that's so important to her, which didn't really come out until later as I was writing her, was because I realized, well, she's really trying to shed this image of her as like this spoiled little rich girl. Yeah. So at least if she fought these people, at least if she showed some grit, then maybe, and just to put it in comparison, I think in a similar situation, I don't know how much grit I would have shown in the beginning. I'd be like, I'm just going to sit tight, wait for my parents,
You're right.
Do what they do.
Yeah.
It would take a while before I'm looking for weapons to try and fight my way out of it.
Yeah. I love that. The whole Nepo baby conversation in general is so fascinating. And I'm trying to think of, I read another book last year that kind of, the main character is a Nepo baby, and it's so easy, and I understand why. As a society, we like make jokes about them, and there are times when like it's creating huge imbalances, where like other people aren't getting opportunities. So I understand both sides of the conversation so much, though, because then sometimes, though, you like read a book or hear someone's memoir maybe who is a Nepo baby, and you're like, oh, but they still technically are people. Like, they actually still are, and like some of them didn't ask for this, and it's just like what happened to them. So I thought that was fascinating too. But you cover a lot of different themes in this one. But before I like get into all my questions about them, what was your like initial idea that sparked this story?
Well, so for me, I think my main concern when I was going into writing the story, which kind of dovetails with the kidnappers, is what does AI look like in a world where we know wealth distribution is very unfair, right? And because I think, this technology is leveraging really the sum total of human creativity and intelligence and everything we've learned, and it's digitized it and it's drawing upon it. But then, the money is going to go to the people who started these companies. So it's kind of like you have a library of books and you're only paying the librarian.
Right.
Right. And you forget about all the people that wrote all that stuff.
Right.
So, I do think that one of the things that concerns me and it gives me a lot of anxiety is the continued wealth concentration. And both because it makes me worry about, our democratic institutions and how those things survive.
Yes.
With a lot of people having all this influence, and also the value of labor, because we see, let's say take Amazon during the pandemic, right? And a lot of us really relied on Amazon, and I'm not saying that Amazon isn't a great company. Like, it's absolutely
right.
I couldn't have gotten through it without those packages. Then at the same time, the people that deliver the packages, we find like, they get unionized. Sometimes they don't have health care. They're like independent contractors. They're peeing in bottles. There's no doors on their things, so they can jump in and out, and so, and it gave me a whole new respect for all the people that were delivering my packages, because also they were working at a time where a lot of us were very much afraid of, interacting with other people and what that could mean for our health, right? And so you realize there are kind of all these unsung laborers that make the big idea work, right? And how do we value that as a society? So I think, and how has technology kind of exacerbated those inequalities? So really the main theme of it was just, what does it look like if we continue along this path with AI, creating a lot of valuable things, as it will,
right,
but without really addressing, what it's going to do to labor and how that money gets, shared in a society.
Yeah, the wealth is very disproportionate. Like you're saying, we have like so much of it in just that top 1%. And like you're saying, they're the ones who are pretty much leading the charge with AI. So that is it's like, what do we do about that? Like, there are, like you're saying, there are good use cases, just like the internet, like when we were first kind of, when that was first happening, that's the word I'm looking for. And so it's so important to look at both the pros and the cons. And you really managed to pack that into a fiction book that is still like really fun to read. So I love when thrillers can make you think as well. And obviously it's not a spoiler, Alice Ingold is kidnapped. But it turns into like a game, like a nationwide game, basically. So how did you get that idea? I thought it was so creative for a plot structure.
Oh, thank you. Well, like a lot of authors, I just ripped that one off from the Patty, like from history, from like real life. So, so Patty Hearst's kidnapping, right, which happened at kind of a similar time in that it was really the advent of the computer and the personal computer in the 1978. Like a lot of businesses were starting that mass adoption. Obviously, there had been computers before, but this idea that it was really going to get in there and make what technology does, which is make increase GDP while reducing the labor needed, right? Because the computer can now allow one person to do the work sometimes of two or more, right? And so there was all this anxiety there, and the kidnappers in that case, who did some terrible things that have, that I did not want to touch in my book, and it's not there. But the kidnappers there, one of their kind of like stated anxieties that fueled her whole kidnapping was this feeling that people were going to be replaced, right? And they picked her in particular because of her notoriety and because they wanted immediate attention on their political ideas. Now, they also were doing a lot of drugs, and I think were terrible rapists and all these other things, and put her through unthinkable things. So and obviously that's where we get Stockholm syndrome from, right? But that idea of kidnappers using someone for a political message was really came from history.
You're like, sadly it came from real life. The whole media part is it's always fascinating which stories the media chooses to cover. And like you're saying, it's like being strategic if you're a kidnapper can mean like picking someone who is already high profile. Sorry, that's where I was going with it too. And then she's got blonde hair, she's got blue eyes. That's typically what does really attract media attention as well. So with like true crime, because that's kind of all playing into it in the media as well, was there anything that like specifically made you want to write about true crime, or was it just kind of like also just the natural progression of this kind of a plot?
I think it was just the natural progression of this plot, and really, I mean, the true crime core was the Patty Hearst kidnapping, and then kind of if that sort of thing happened today. And I guess my personal anxieties, I have two daughters. So one of the main point of view characters is a mom. And while that mom, is a socialite and has very little in common with me, other than I did give her my full birth name.
Yes.
But mostly because I thought it was haughty. I was like, Catherine had a certain
yes, it does.
Which is probably why we go by name. But
we're both Catherines
so
talking about this, so it's fair.
Yes. But so I think that it was really that case, and then and it's funny because often I will write characters that have a little bit more similarities to my own ethnic background, because I'm half Black and half white and Jamaican and Irish, and I write immigrant characters and characters that are kind of dealing with being in kind of two cultural worlds at the same time that they're American. But with Alice, I really wanted kind of that archetype that gets all that attention. I wanted like the grown up Jean Bonnet type. So
totally.
That was it.
Her parents, her dad is basically an AI guru essentially, and her mom is a socialite, as you just mentioned. And it helps you talk about like both of those sectors of society as well. So was there any like research you did into making like both of those characters that way, or was it something you were already kind of interested in, so you knew about it?
Well, I was a tech reporter for years at Business Week, and then even when I covered the markets, it kind of had a tech slant. So later on in my career, so I interviewed Bezos and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all of them, and I think, I mean, actually, and I'm not a person that thinks like, oh, this person's bad and this person's good. I think all of us have, different motivations and are really great in some ways. And, but one thing I noticed covering that whole sector was the founder culture and this idea that it's kind of like the founder is celebrated and they own most of the stock in the company and they get most of the wealth and they have the initial idea, and how the other people that work for these companies, are valued in the structure. And so, and like Facebook used to have this whole motto when it first started, which was, oh gosh, I don't want to get it wrong. I should probably look it up. But it was basically something like think fast and break things, or like move fast and break things, right? And the idea, I get it, was kind of like, well, to revolutionize society in a technological way, you want to, kind of make it and then see what it does and then deal with what it does later and fix it up later. But, sometimes that means sometimes big things break and they're not so easy to fix. And to their credit, I think they changed that motto as they got bigger and realized, but I do think that it's not just them. I think that is a kind of a popular Silicon Valley mentality, right? Is that the revolution kind of comes first, and then you deal with the consequences. And so, as an outsider kind of looking in, I've always wondered, well, when does the reckoning come with the consequences? And are there any ways to kind of deal with what we foresee those to be before they actually happen? Because some of them might be a bit too devastating to actually happen.
Right. Yeah. When the way you were saying that was also reminding me, it's actually like a very American, not even like just Silicon Valley. I hadn't thought of it until you were just saying like founder culture. And then there's like obviously a lot of conversations right now about the founding fathers, which I still don't even think they were like bastions of morality either, but it's always coming up. And I hadn't thought of even like that's even kind of how we have run our country a little bit. Like just get it made and then we'll figure things out. And you really do excuse a lot of bad behavior if that's like, if it's such an ends justify the means almost kind of, I think, is like not having to think about it at all. So yeah.
And also I think we have there's different visions, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone's utopia is somebody else's dystopia, right?
Right.
That's the whole. And so, there is a vision out there where everything, tech gives individuals so much power that all of your media is, decided on prompts by you, right? And all of your, and your news can be tailored to kind of support your own confirmation bias.
Right.
And you can kind of live in your own bubble, and there will be some demand for that. There are people that kind of want that, but I think you have to go, well, what happens to society if that is the world that we create, right? How do you, from as simple as like you lose the water cooler conversation of like, did you see that show last night, or did you read that book, and the ideas and things that sparks, to maybe losing a foundation of fact from which we can operate on. Right. So yeah, so you see lots of anxieties go into my
That's okay. It's probably, I mean, it's sometimes the anxious people who are like writing this stuff that like helps us process what's happening or like think about what's going to happen next. So yeah, basically I get it. It's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah. And it's funny, my kid, my 8th grader is reading Fahrenheit 451.
Wow.
Right. And so I reread it because I was just like, oh, I want it fresh. It is amazing. It is amazing.
How well
the things he has like some of the things he said were so prescient to right now. And it's not just the book book burning. It's really the larger idea with society of like, how much do we want to just be comfortable and not have difficult conversations, and how much even do we want our books? And I run into this all the time, like, what is the balance between trying to write something that's entertaining but also might have something to think about, versus just kind of keeping it in that, a little bit more true crimey, where it's just like, did you hear this salacious story? And like, can you believe that the mother like was writing the bullying notes all the time? Or like, like these kind of like things where I mean, maybe in a very broad way, it kind of has meaning other, beyond, but not really. We're all really just going, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. It's just good, like neighborhood gossip kind of thing.
I know.
And so you're always trying to strike that balance, because, there are a lot of people that are just like, entertain me, monkey writer, and like, and so you're trying to kind of do that while at the same time be like, what are some larger discussions we can bring into it?
Yeah, that's what I've also been reading thrillers for years, so it might just be I've read a lot of like popcorn thrillers, but I have been appreciating lately. It's like sometimes the stuff that, or the stories that are talking about like some bigger themes, that means the stories tends to stick with me longer. And like character development, that's like the other part. Like when I really feel like I know the characters and like they feel completely fleshed out, is more memorable for me. So that's like the direction I've been going as a reader. Obviously, read your popcorn thrillers if you want to too, but I've kind of been feeling that way just as a reader in general too. So I do appreciate the like bigger conversations that are happening. That mom texting her daughter, I can't even remember what the doc was called, but it was also like, those kids are so young still. That was like the other thing that stood out to me. I'm like they're just traumatized. Like I saw clips, I didn't end up watching it, but I would just see clips and I'm like, these are still babies that just like went through something very weird, and we're all just like, oh my god, this is crazy. So it is, I struggle with true crime sometimes because of that, where it's like the sensationalized part of it, and then knowing it's a real person is like, it's just hard for me sometimes. But I know there are really good ways to approach it that have like really helped people. So it's another one of those.
That was one of those where I also watched the clips of it, but I think the family fully participated. So then there's that thing of like, and there must be some catharsis in telling the story.
Probably, you're right.
But I think they were, I mean, not that old, but I guess she was still at least like graduated college, right? Kind of like telling about what happened in high school. But yeah, and then there's just me using it as a cautionary tale with my kids and being like, see, at least I'm not bullying you.
Yes, I know. You're like, I'm actually pretty great.
Give me Mother of the Year award.
Yeah. Yes. It is what you were saying too about Fahrenheit 451. It is wild how when you go back and read stuff from other time periods, like you really are like, oh, a lot of history repeats itself just in different ways. Because I had that experience. I just read The Parable of the Sower and The Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler, and the amount of things that she predicted are wild. Like there's like literally a president elected in 2025 whose slogan is "Make America Great Again," and she wrote this in like the 90s, and I'm just like, it kind of what we were talking about earlier, like the people who like need to be the most anxious, which were, as a Black woman especially at that time, not that it's like leagues better at the moment, but like she had to pay attention. And so it's like I'm like noticing like how the people who like have more reason to be anxious or hyper vigilant are actually so good at predicting stuff. And it's just like, could we listen to writers maybe? But yeah, it's wild how much can kind of like the people who are observing things end up telling stories that may predict the future, which is kind of wild. So you were kind of mentioning like this isn't just like a strict like police procedural. There's like other layers to it. So how do you like tell how to keep the pacing going, but also like the emotional depth happening? Like I know some people are like, oh, I can read and I can tell like, oh, I would be bored, but like how do you kind of approach that?
Um, well, I think, I always come from is their want strong enough? Because I think if what they want and what they need is a is compelling,
Mm-hmm.
then hopefully that'll carry you through the book, right? So, um, you know, Catherine's want is to get her daughter back. That's a pretty compelling want, and to get her back in one piece, um, and to use all her resources available to do that. And then as the story develops, and she kind of, her character is kind of forced to take a hard look at her marriage because um, she's excused a lot of things, uh, as I think women sometimes in these situations do, but I also think society does, where it's like we have a lot of tolerance for our geniuses, right? It's like, oh, you're a genius, yes, so we're gonna look the other way when you do that, or you're a genius, but you went up Sea Island a few times, but like you're a genius, and so, and not that I'm a fan of cancel culture. I'm just saying that I think,
No, I know
people have a lot of facets.
Yes.
And I think, we also do this with celebrities. We lionize them, and then we're like shocked that the person who has a really beautiful skill at conveying human emotion on screen, is a hot mess once they're up.
Like, right? Oh, they could have been acting like a good person. I'm shocked.
Right. They're not a paragon of morality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we kind of, we do these things. And I think Catherine's a good example of that. And that even in the partnership, she has excused a lot of stuff and has, turned a blind eye to behaviors because she feels like, well, but, this is the price of being with somebody who is going to be this powerful and is going to change the world, and she's also forced to look at, how that has affected not only her marriage, but her as a parent, right? Making these excuses. And so I think as she comes to that realization, and then how that allows her to operate at the end, right? Kind of like feeling like, I think she does a bit of a 180 because she's made to realize, like, for years, I have not been the parent I imagined that I was. I thought I was being protective, and I thought I was being hypervigilant and a good mom in all these ways, and kind of like I let a wolf into the hen house, and and so then she becomes, and I'm not going to ever do that again, right? And so I think you try to have them arc and learn something about themselves, and hopefully that keeps people going. So that was her arc, and and I think Alice's arc is kind of learning. I think maybe the ways that she's been selfish, and so at the end needing to rely on people who she's been dismissive of and hasn't really thought how her actions, while she's been very concentrated on how they affect her, not so much how they might be affecting other people.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like that's a really empathetic take because like and to your point about cancel culture, we don't want to just like cancel or never talk to again people who, like, she can't help that she grew up in the bubble she grew up in, and so it is a conversations I've been kind of having more in general lately is about like what do you do, or what do people do when they're confronted with the new information? Like if they were just ignorant before, then like does it change their perspective? Like it's kind of like once they have the knowledge, how are they going to act now? And I feel like that was pretty powerful with her arc, is like she can't help, like none of us can help how our parents basically design our childhoods for us. So yeah, I thought that there's a lot of cool emotional stuff going on there with both of them. With the villains and the game, was there anything like difficult about writing like the riddles, like that specific part?
I had a lot of fun with them. I think, they're pretty meta because and also you know, as it, there's also the question of how much do the kidnappers want you to solve the riddle versus how much are they deliberately being cryptic and crazy just for attention, right? Mm-hmm. Which was also something that really came out of the Patty Hearst kidnapping, and they wrote a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And some of it was clearly, well, some of it may have been because they were on drugs and just being crazy, but then some of it I think was because they would write these long manifestos because they wanted the attention. They wanted the media attention on it. And, to sit there and say, hey, this and this and this, kind of a little clearly, they would kind of lose. I think in some ways they were very aware when the cameras were on them, right? Mm-hmm. And so they were, and there was a lot of theater that went into that. I mean, yes, they were robbing banks at one point, right? Mm-hmm. But which I'm sure was for money, but with the whole, the videos that they would do before, right? This is like before social media, where like they had the videos, they staged her with her, her what's that hat, like that tam, and beret and the machine gun. Like they were very much aware what images are going and what kind of words are going to keep the media's attention. And I think that the kidnappers here are using the riddles in a similar way.
So there's like the victim crowd and like spectator, like there are kind of like all of those perspectives throughout. Like we're actually not just living in like one person's perspective kind of, or it's like touching on all of that. Was that like intentional too, that you kind of wanted to talk about how everyone reacts to these kinds of things?
Yeah, well, I wanted to show that there was, there's only 2 point of views, right? But I wanted to show that there's that the kidnappers' idea is a media spectacle, and that they are creating, what they intended. Mm-hmm. And also, being a journalist for years, I think it's an honest, portrayal of the kind of spectacle that would be created with something like that, with like the news helicopters and the whole wave. I think I refer to it as like it's like a centipede coming towards you, where it's just like this mass of bodies and cameras and eyes and so but I think it's funny, especially I think this new generation, even more so than mine, because I see my kids, they have just a comfort with the camera, right? And with that sort of attention that I certainly don't, right? Because they've just grown up with, and I'm partially to blame. Like since they were born, it was like, smile for mom, right? And let me tag it so your entire childhood can be,
documented.
And so I'm dealing with a generation here that is kind of very media savvy, and they have this comfort with spectacle and public attention that I think is unique to them.
Yeah. It's like every now and then I'll see like TikToks of like 6 or 7 year olds who are like pretending to be YouTubers, or like they like sit down, they're like, hey guys, blah blah blah, and I'm like, they're so young and they know how to like act like an influencer. It is a little wild seeing that.
I mean, I'm guilty of during COVID, I bought all those all these like science experiment sets, because the one thing I thought that was going to get lost was, because there was no hands-on science since everything was. So my kids did all like 150 Dyson engineering and science experiments, and we videotaped them all like a show.
Cool, though.
And they like took them through and had to sit there and be like, okay guys, today we're going to learn about, and I thought it was a way that it was making it fun and probably also selfishly preserving it for my own memories. But it was cute. We did every single one. COVID lasted so long. And then we also did, I think, like all of the Mel science experiments, like every mail order. So I don't know. They become mad scientists. I like to think I'll have something to do with
Oh,
that.
totally. You'd be like, look at who helps get you excited about this stuff.
That's right. We blew stuff up, don't you remember?
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's not an inherently bad thing that kids know how to do like social media speak or whatever. It's not, just like everything we're kind of talking about. There's a lot of things where it's not all good or all bad. So
yeah.
I'm thinking if they are doing science experiments, it's probably okay.
I thought so. I mean, they made me take down the channel as they got older. They're like, it's so embarrassing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that I have a niece who's hit that phase where she's like, don't post me, mom. And she's like, okay, fine, I won't. But yeah, obviously I loved it. I really enjoyed it. Anyone who loves thrillers, like we were talking about, that have some emotional depth to them and talk about some social issues as well, you guys need to go grab a copy. As of the time that this is airing, you can go grab a copy. And I do always ask at the end if you've had a book you've loved recently, or if there's a book that you like always recommend to people.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, it's not out yet, but Vanessa Lilly's newest one I'm really excited for. So that's Blood Sisters. No, Blood Sisters was the first one. That's
The Bone Thief.
The Bone Thief. Sorry. I knew I was going to say it wrong because I'm like, I just finished talking about sisters, so the word sisters is in my head.
Yes.
That was the first one. Yes, The Bone Thief. So I'm excited about that one.
Yes.
And I mean, if people have a chance, it's funny. I just read Fahrenheit 451, and I mean, it's just because I read it yesterday. It's so short. It's almost like in between like a book and a short story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just kind of wild how prescient some of it is. Obviously, there's the overarching threat of nuclear war that I think we feel less concerned about now. Maybe wrongly.
I was just saying that. Yeah. Who knows?
But yeah, so I'd say give that one a look again. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you're making me want to reread it. So I probably will here soon.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me about this and obviously writing it. It was very fun. And yeah, I'm excited to see what you're working on next.